All right, welcome everybody. And presumably we will break for the next month, the month of Tishrei, all the holidays, and we will resume in 4 weeks from today on the 20th, October 20th, Thursday evening. B'li neder, we will then hopefully resume. Now, I think we're up to page 54 in my edition of The Path of the Righteous Gentile, which is in the middle of the chapter of idolatry. So we're in part 2, and I think we're like up to 19 or something. Now, before that, I was thinking of, in honor of the upcoming holiday season of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the days of awe, and then followed by Sukkot, etc., to perhaps have a class on that, or at least part of the class. And especially since a question was sent in asking exactly that about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur as far as the Noahide is concerned. I want to make sort of a disclaimer, if that's the term to use, that what I'm going to say now is my understanding, or I should say my feeling based on my understanding, and I could be partially, to some degree, wrong. So what I'm saying now, sometimes I'm very sure of myself, and sometimes what I'm saying I have sources for, very clear, and I remember them, and I've looked them up, and I've researched, and I can tell you exactly what it says. What I'm about to say now, that's not exactly the case. This is my understanding of the situation. So let me give a little bit of a generalization first, and then we'll, based on that, zoom in to the details. 5,783 years ago, God created the world, which includes all of the physical galaxies, everything, all the planets, and beyond. Anything physical was created then. Now, we're taught in the oral tradition, the Torah, that the purpose of everything is for planet Earth. Everything else is necessary, and in some ways to serve planet Earth, even though they may seem so far out there. But as science develops, they actually do see a correlation and a relationship of various different things, which in the past we couldn't even dream that there's anything that it has to do with us. But we do believe that everything is associated, and it's for planet Earth. Not just the moon that orbits around us, not just the sun, but even the further planets and even other galaxies, which seemingly have their own story and their own life, nothing to do with us. Everything is for planet Earth. And in planet Earth itself, the purpose is to make this physical world a dwelling place for God. That is what Hasidus speaks about a lot in great detail. And the way to make a dwelling place for God is by observing and keeping his commandments, etc. So then everything on the planet is to serve that purpose. So everything that was created is a means to this end. Now, the ones who are the purpose is the chosen people, the Jewish people. And they were given the Torah. And the non-Jews, the Gentiles, the Noahides, they are also part of making a dwelling place for God. And there's actually, I'm sure you'd be very interested, but we're not going to go into that today. In a certain sense, so the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach explains that the dwelling for God in this world is accomplished more by the Noahide than by the Jew in a very particular aspect. We're not going to get into that now, so don't ask. Now, having said that, everything is judged on Rosh Hashanah. On this coming Sunday night, Monday, and Tuesday, that is when the Jewish calendar year changes from 5782 to 5783. That's the number of years since creation. And a whole discussion for itself, that are these years the kind of years that we have, or is there any way to reconcile and say that actually it could still be millions or billions of years ago, and even though we're calling it 5783, so again, without going into that whole thing, which that would be a whole section unto itself, but the bottom line is that we maintain very strongly that it is the type of years that we have, and it's exactly literally is this very relatively small number of years, only 5,783 years, and the 6 days of creation, every day was a 24-hour period. Okay, that's the bottom line, that's the conclusion, that's the absolute. Does everybody agree with that? No, but they're mistaken. Anyway, but that we should perhaps discuss in full at a different time. Now, the importance of man, we can see by the very fact that we switched the calendar year from the 6th day of creation, the day man was created. Rosh Hashanah is not the first day of creation, it's the 6th day of creation when Adam and Chava, when man was created, and that's when the calendar year changes. So that's very interesting. That just proves the point, stresses the point, that everything else doesn't count, and it's only a means to get to this end. So the first 5 days of creation are irrelevant until we get to the completion, which is man. Okay. Now, all of creation gets judged on Rosh Hashanah, even though if you happen to be very learned, you would know that in the Talmud, there's a Mishnah in the tractate of Rosh Hashanah, which actually tells us that there's 4 Rosh Hashanahs, and that the world, the water for the world, how much irrigation is going to be, that's one time, and the grain has its time, and the fruit have their time. Those are details. But otherwise, at least human beings are judged on Rosh Hashanah. And if the person is righteous, or God forbid, wicked, then their fate is sealed on Rosh Hashanah. And God grants the person a good year, a blessed year, a year of life, and a year of all health, prosperity, all the good stuff, etc. If, however, the person it's undecided in the heavenly court, it's like kind of balanced more or less, and Rosh Hashanah, they're not going to seal anything yet. So then Yom Kippur, the fast of Yom Kippur, which is on the 10th day of the new year of Tishrei, then it is sealed. So that's why during the week between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, during those 7 days, it's extremely crucial that we're on our best behavior and then some. So that in case there is any doubt, we can tip the scales in our benefit. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are really one unit. As a matter of fact, Yom Kippur is referred to as Rosh Hashanah. It's called Rosh Hashanah. It's the culmination and the conclusion of the Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is not 1 day, it's 2 days. And it's really not 2 days, it's actually 10 days. All right? We do find in scripture that Yom Kippur is called Rosh Hashanah. It's the beginning of the year, the head of the year. Now, all of that is for all of mankind. That is when mankind is judged. So seemingly, the non-Jew fits in just as much as the Jew. Sukkot is definitely connected to the non-Jew as well. I think they're called tabernacles. That's when the Jews build these little booths, these little huts, and we basically, or supposedly, we move into those sukkahs. A sukkah is a booth or a hut with very specific laws, what makes it kosher, what makes it not kosher. It basically has to have, halachically, a certain number of walls, and it's got to have a certain type of covering. It's got to be from something which grows in the ground. And then there's lots of details. And there's all sorts of dimensions. Now, we live in that sukkah for the 7 days of Sukkot. And Sukkot, as I say, is very much connected to the non-Jews as well, because in the times of the Beis Hamikdash of the Holy Temple, so we brought every single day, as it is clearly written in the book of Numbers, for all the festivals, what the sacrifices had to be. So amongst the musaf, the extra sacrifices that were brought every day of the 7 days of Sukkot, the exact same number was brought each day, the number of sheep, rams, etc., except for the number of bullocks. The bulls, that changed each day, and the total number is 70. And it's actually, there's a midrash, which says, part of the oral tradition, that if the non-Jews would only know how important the Holy Temple is for them and for their protection and for their existence, they would set up armies and fortresses to protect the Holy Temple, that no one should be able to come and harm the temple. So Sukkot is a time that's associated with the non-Jews. That doesn't mean that a non-Jew is supposed to keep the mitzvah of dwelling in a sukkah or the shaking of the lulav palm branch with the citron, esrog, etc. Well, let's get back to Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. I would say that Rosh Hashanah, the non-Jew, the Noahide, is connected to that day and can, in a certain way, participate, as we've discussed in the past when he mentioned it. But if the whole world is being judged on that day, why then is it not part of the Noahide commandments that a Noahide has to do something? There is no obligation for a Noahide to do anything on Rosh Hashanah. You don't have to mark the day. You don't have to be aware of the day. You don't have to pray extra on that day. You don't have to be extra good on that day. You don't have to go to synagogue on that day. There's nothing extra that a Noahide has to do on Rosh Hashanah. But why? If that is the day of judgment. So the way I would put it, frankly, I would say that it's a gift that God gave to the Jews. Part of the Torah, so part of the 613 commandments is keeping Rosh Hashanah. Now, mind you, biblically speaking, it has nothing to do with being judged. It just says that on the first day of the 7th month, you are to refrain from doing melacha, that type of work, and you are to bring certain sacrifices. That's it. Similar to Shavuos, the time of the giving of the Torah, that festival biblically has nothing to do with the giving of the Torah. So to biblically speaking, without going deeper, without going according to the oral tradition, just according to the written law, Rosh Hashanah has nothing to do with New Year's. It's actually the 7th month, biblically speaking, because Passover month of Nisan is the 1st month. and has nothing to do with repentance, nothing to do with extra prayers. What we have to do is sound the shofar. Doesn't say why. Yeah, lots of reasons are given. In the Chumash, in the Bible, it just says, take this horn, sound the shofar in a very particular way, bring the sacrifices in the Holy Temple, and refrain from doing melacha work. That is the whole thing. That's it. However, then comes the oral tradition, and we understand all the various things. So yes, it's the day that the world is being judged, and we spend a tremendous amount of that day in the synagogue, pouring out our hearts and praying and crowning God as King, the coronation, which is one of the things that the shofar represents, and so on and so forth. So this is a gift. This is a mitzvah. This is a festival that God gave to the Jews. He gave the Jews Shabbos. He gave the Jews a whole bunch of festivals. This is one of them. So in that regard, a Noahide, as we said, is not permitted to really keep Shabbos or any festival, even though he's doing it for the right purpose and he's doing it to serve God. However, that doesn't mean that he can't participate. It doesn't mean that if he's aware that the world is being judged, well then, be on your best behavior. Pray hard on that day. Beseech God for a good year. By all means, I don't see any problem with that whatsoever. And to answer the question, so why isn't it obligatory? That's what I'm saying. It's a special gift that God gave to the chosen people. So would it be commendable for a Noahide to go to synagogue on Rosh Hashanah? I would say yes. Obligatory? Not at all. Should we make a campaign out of it? Not necessary. But if you care for yourself, if you care for your fellow Noahide, well, why not share with them this information that it's the day of judgment and therefore pray. But it's not like you need to hear the shofar. The shofar, which sounding it has a very special power to it, that it can awaken and arouse the person to do teshuvah. My humble opinion is that only applies to the Jewish soul. I may be wrong. People can disagree with me, but my simple understanding is that because it's a mitzvah for the Jew, and it's not for the non-Jew, and it's not just a musical instrument, you can make the exact same sound with a non-kosher shofar, and it wouldn't work. And even a musician wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two sounds if you use something which has an identical tone to it. And yet, if by Jewish law, this shofar is the right one, and this one isn't, or if this was blown by the right person, this one was not. Let's say you have someone who knows how to blow the shofar perfectly, a 12-year-old Jewish child, or an adult Noahide, and they blow the shofar perfectly. Doesn't do the thing. An adult Jew who's obligated to hear the shofar, it doesn't work, and therefore it can't truly arouse his soul. We can have all sorts of imaginary things, and we can think that it's awakening us and arousing us, but that's not really getting to the soul. So therefore, I don't think there's any point in a Noahide hearing the shofar. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I'm not saying that you have to walk out and the sound of the shofar. No, not at all. But don't think that you have to hear the shofar sounded. But to have the general feeling and the general mood of Rosh Hashanah with the festive meals and the praying, you can participate in that. Yom Kippur, though, even though we're saying that it is a continuation of Rosh Hashanah, and the people that are still undecided and undetermined are being judged on that day, so in that regards, it would still apply to Noahide. However, Yom Kippur is, biblically, it is associated with forgiveness, with atonement, unlike Rosh Hashanah. Clearly, the reason we were given Yom Kippur, and it says so clearly, so many times in the written law, in the text, in the Bible, that this is the Day of Atonement, and we are to fast in order to atone for our sins. And we do teshuvah We return to God, we repent, and all of that is, again, a gift that God gave to the Jewish people. So yes, historically, it came from a very negative thing, from a huge sin of making the golden calf, just after hearing from God himself the 10 commandments, that we're not allowed to have any other gods, and we can't worship anything else. So it was a terrible sin. But as a result of that, when Moses was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, 3 times, so finally on Yom Kippur, the final day, is when God said, I forgive them. And ever since then, he says, I am giving the mitzvah, the commandment, for the Jewish people exclusively to have Yom Kippur, where it's the Shabbos of Shabbases. No melacha work is permitted, like Shabbos. And in addition to that, no eating or drinking. Personally, and I know that not everyone agrees with this, personally, I don't see not only the necessity, that of course not. I understand fully. I don't see the point, though, of a Noahide fasting on Yom Kippur. And I understand why you would, and I understand why you want to. I get it. It's a gift that God gave the Jewish people, the Day of Atonement. A Noahide can do teshuvah, as we learned previously, any given time, just like a Jew can do at any given time. But these 10 days from Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur is a gift for the Jewish people. So the holiday of Yom Kippur, just like any Jewish holiday, you can't really observe fully and properly. Doesn't belong to you. But going to synagogue, same as I said about Rosh Hashanah. Why not? It's the Day of Atonement. It's the final day of judgment. So that's fine. But in a sense, less than Rosh Hashanah, because Rosh Hashanah is the birth of the world, birth of man. Yom Kippur is more personal for the Jewish people, the Day of Atonement. And we don't find that God says that this is the day that I give atonement for the non-Jews. We don't find that. So, big difference then in that regard between Rosh Hashanah, which is the day of creation of man, and Yom Kippur, which is the day of atonement that the Jewish people were given. That's briefly my take on it. So, practically speaking, you can get into so many details, and there's certain areas where I don't think there is a right and a wrong. And then, of course, there's certain areas where you can't, step out of the bounds, and that's not acceptable. And then other things which are permissible. So, for example, there's a custom, the Jewish Code of Law speaks about it, to wear white on Yom Kippur as a sign of clean, pure, to wear white. So, can a Noahide wear white? I see no problem with it. And even if he's wearing white because he wants to symbolize pureness and cleanliness, I don't see a problem. You can wear white any day you want. And if you're wearing white today because it's Yom Kippur, I personally don't see any problem with it. And again, not everybody has to agree with that. Some might say, no, why is he wearing white? He's not Jewish. I don't see a problem with that. Come to synagogue because it's a very serious day, and it's the final day of judgment for the world, and you want to, be part of, that's fine. I don't think there's a prohibition, and although I'm not sure, I don't think it's forbidden for a Noahide to fast on Yom Kippur. It might fall into the category of what we said, that they can do mitzvahs that they're not commanded to do as voluntary to receive reward. We said the exception basically is that if it has to do with the sanctity and the holiness, such as writing a Torah scroll or putting on tefillin. Whereas refraining from eating, fasting, that should be okay. The only problem might be is because, again, we said that they can't make a holiday for themselves. But if you're not making a holiday for yourself, and you're not really 100% keeping Yom Kippur, you're just choosing to do a couple of things, that might be permissible. I wouldn't necessarily encourage, even though, as I said, I understand fully why a person would want to fast on Yom Kippur. And parenthetically, a little bit on a lighter note, the way that the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, works, this is the mechanism of, I guess, human nature. When something is not demanded of a person, they want to do it. As soon as it becomes mandatory, obligatory, a must, all of a sudden, naturally, we back off. We tend to suddenly have resistance. It happens to children when they turn bar mitzvah at age 13 for boys and 12 for girls. Before, they were so excited. They wanted to do all these grown-up things and all these adult things to do. And when they turn bar mitzvah, all of a sudden, they're not interested in many cases. And also, I've seen a couple of times by a ger tzedek, a non-Jew who converts properly, halachically, by Jewish law and becomes Jewish. All of a sudden, when they were non-Jews and they were doing things for practice because they were going through the process, they were very meticulous, they were really good about it. And when they become Jewish, it's like they joined the ranks and now they became like many other Jews and it becomes difficult. And that's human nature. So a non-Jew would want to fast. I can understand that on Yom Kippur. 25, 26 hours, whatever it is, to fast. No eating, no drinking. There's so many Jews that would wonder and they say, come on, it's so difficult. You don't have to do it. Why are you doing it? And I don't know of any such case, but I can only imagine that if you have a non-Jew who's been fasting for 10 years, and then he actually converted and he became Jewish. Those 10 years, he loved it and it was easy. And the first time, after he went through his gerus, his conversion, all of a sudden, he feels weak, he has a headache, he can't concentrate, he's hungry. What happened? That's how it works. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say about the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. That is as far as the observance or involvement of the non-Jew. But by all means, it is a day of judgment. It is a very special day, and it is the birthday of the world. And I don't think there's any problem with non-Jews following that calendar count and saying that this year is 5750 this or 5783 or whatever it is. You may not get too far on legal documents, like filling them out, but otherwise, there's nothing about 2022. It's 5782 or 5783. So if you want to count by that, I see absolutely no problem. On the contrary, that would be the right thing to do. Any questions on that before we go to our regular spot where we're holding over here? You need not agree with what I said. All right. Oftentimes we say that silence is a show of agreement. Okay. And one more thing. When I'm gonna conclude, I really hope I remember tonight. Therefore, to wish a ksiva v'chasima toiva to be written and inscribed, to be sealed for a good year, by all means, I see no problem, on the contrary, to wish a Noahide that, whether it's a Jew wishing a Noahide or whether it's a Noahide wishing a Noahide. The traditional wish that one Jew gives another for at least a month before Rosh Hashanah is that you should be written and sealed for a good year. I don't see any problem whatsoever, and as I say, on the contrary, to wish that to Noahides, because they are being written and sealed on that day. So wish your fellow that it should be a good year. So in case I forget before we go off, I wish all of you Iksiva V'chasima Toiva. Have a good, sweet new year. I think we're up to 19. Page 54 in my edition, number 19. It is forbidden to wear a ring that has a seal on it in the image of a man, a cameo, if the image protrudes in relief. But it may be used as a seal. You can't walk around wearing it, but you could seal it, because then when you seal it, it's the other way around. And that's the next part. If the image is concave, it may be worn, but it is forbidden to use it as a seal, because the seal creates an image in relief. So basically, you can't have it protruding. So if it's protruding and when you seal it, obviously it'll be the opposite, then you can use it as a seal, but you can't wear it because it's protruding. And if it's the other way around, so then you can wear it because it is impressed. It's concave, but then you cannot use it as a seal because then the seal will come out the other way around, protruding. So that's the problem. So the problem is to have it protruding. Make sense?
Well, that would exclude both possibilities.
No. In other words, to wear it as a ring.
Also, if he has it in his desk drawer,
and it's his stamp, that's fine. That's my insignia, or that's my seal, whatever you call it. That's fine. Can't walk around wearing it.
So he can keep it in the drawer
for the purpose of And the same thing vice versa, that he can wear it as a ring, but then he can't use it as a seal because it's going to cause the forbidden time. 20. It is forbidden to form images of the sun or moon or stars or constellations or of the angels or of the four faces in one form of the chariot that Ezekiel saw, as it is forbidden to make images of the ministering angels that serve God. Such figures may not even be made in two-dimensional form. So it's problematic. That basically means that you're not supposed to make such images, even though I know they're all around and so on, but it's not allowed. Simple, image of the sun or the moon. However, if it's not the full image, like if it's showing the sun rising or setting, then I believe that the ruling is that it's fine. And the same thing with the moon. If it's not a full moon, it may be fine as well. Like if you're just showing a quarter moon, half a moon, whatever it is. '21. According to other opinions, it is forbidden to make forms of the angels and the chariot only in three-dimensional form, relief, meaning that, again, they're protruding. Drawing them on canvas or weaving these images on cloth or painting them on stone would be permitted, since this form of expression is not three-dimensional. So a painting is not a problem, whether it's on a wall or on a paper and canvas, according to this opinion. However, even this latter lenient opinion forbids the drawing of the sun, moon, or stars in their complete form, I just said, in a two-dimensional drawing, because they appear to us two-dimensionally in the sky. We know it's not two-dimensional in the sky. We know it's real, but our eyes perceive it as two-dimensional. Therefore, you're not allowed to make it that way. So the bottom line is, and if you're a painter, an artist, making the sun is a problem. Then the question becomes, what about if it's not really, doesn't really look like the sun, it's just supposed to symbolize the sun, like it's this yellow thing with all these, the way they make those horns or those pointy, rays coming out. Doesn't really look like the sun. It looks more like a cartoon, but it is the sun. That is what you're trying to depict. So it's a problem. And the same thing with the moon. So you have two opinions here, and there's room to be lenient. (22) Concerning a sculpture of man, some say the face by itself is forbidden. Others say that sculpture becomes forbidden only in the whole face, if the whole face is made with its body. According to the second opinion, making a human body with its face is permitted as long as one does not make the complete body, but only a portion of it. However, it is proper to follow the stricter first opinion, even if the sculpture is made just for beauty, no purpose of worship. Now, it's pretty ironic that of all people, Maimonides, the Rambam, the great codifier, so in his laws of Avodah Zarah, of idolatry, he rules as follows. Well, as we just said, actually, that you cannot make a sculpture of a person's face. And out of tremendous admiration, respect, and love, the non-Jews, made this beautiful sculpture, full body, from the bottom of his shoes all the way to the top of his turban. They made a full body of the Rambam. It's just so ironic. But and that is, we actually do know there's very few people, at least in Jewish history, I think in history in general, but in Jewish history, that lived that long ago, it's about 1,000 years ago, that we actually know what their features, what they really looked like. There's a lot of drawings and pictures of different people, but that's just imaginary. We just assume. The Rambam is actually that famous picture, if you have seen of Maimonides, that is really what he looked like, or at least we do have the statue. So it's kind of ironic that they did that to him, even though he says you're not allowed to. All right, let's do the next one, 23. It is forbidden to keep or physically hold the image of a man unless it is distinctly the image of one worshipped as a god. Any other human image may be kept or held, so long as the image is slightly distorted or damaged, such as by chipping the nose to dispel any suspicion of its being an idolatrous form. This act of damaging is called nullifying the idol. Now, we're not getting into what the material is, whether it's wood or gold or silver. What about plastic or different types of, so to say, man-made materials, such as dolls for children? What do you do about a doll? There are many scrupulous people that they take the doll that they give their infant children or their young children, and they actually chip off the tip of the nose. I wouldn't be worried of trauma for the child. They could do that before they give it to the child, and as it's just an imperfect thing. No, the point being is legally you've nullified the idol aspect of it by doing this disrespectful act and making it imperfect. That's all that it is. I mean, the kid plays with it. Eventually, it's going to get used anyway, and it'll get damaged at some point or whatever. So here you just did it from the very onset. All right. Any questions or comments on what we are learning now? Speak up.
Yeah. I got a hat full. All right. So
I can barely hear you.
okay, let me see if I can turn my volume up.
Is it our volume or his?
I don't know.
Hello?
Not sure how to do this without turning it off.
Hear me? I'm speaking now.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, we hear you.
All right. So you were talking about the chariot in depiction. That would mean there's four figures that are in this: a man, a bull, an eagle, and a lion in the same piece of art.
Well,
that mean?
the only one that we're not sure what it really means is Nesher is commonly translated as eagle, but it's been argued that that's a mistranslation. But be that as it may, let's say so you have the other ones. Go ahead.
As a bull, a man, an eagle, and a lion.
Well, except for the eagle, you're definitely right. An eagle is the way they usually translate it, but it may not be eagle. Go ahead.
So those are part of the chariot. Those should never be placed in a single piece of art, but individually they can be made, correct?
You think can they be part of a larger picture?
Well, I mean, you just take one of them and put him in a picture by itself.
No.
You can't even do that? You mean you can't paint a picture of an eagle? I mean, a bull. Let's just say a bull.
Okay. Well,
So you're saying no.
the best thing to do, if you want to follow the stricter opinion that it's two-dimensional, is to make it imperfect. Like, for example, many of the very observant books that they put out for children, much of it to help them understand Talmud. So Talmud speaks about bulls all the time. It's, when they're depicting the Kohanim, the priests in the temple, and the Levites, and all these things. In many of these books, the drawings, the people are either faceless, or you can clearly tell that they didn't make a full face. Like there's no eyes, no nose, even though they made them with ears and a beard and a mouth, but you could see that it's not really a full face. So something like that would be permissible without question. So same thing, you're making a bull, but the image of the face is clearly not a full image. That would be fine. Yeah.
Well, it just seems to me that it's kind of hard not to follow the parameters if you're like a normal artist. That
I know. Another suggestion would be that it's possible that the prohibition is only if you make it the entire face as opposed to the profile. If it's a profile, so that would be also fine because you're not even seeing the whole face, even though you're making it very clear that half of the face is really full. It's an eye and the nose, the mouth, whatever it is. But because it's only a profile, that's clearly not a face.
Okay.
So like you're making, let's say, two bulls fighting with each other, or a picture of a bunch of bulls plowing a field or whatever it may be, or grazing. So again, you can make the backside of the bull with the tail, you can make the side, and you're making a whole bunch of them. But as long as you don't actually make the, what's it called? What's the word in English for the front image?
facial profile.
No, not profile is the side. What's
Portrait.
the word?
Portrait.
Portrait? Isn't portrait just any drawing? There's an English word for the front of the face, a drawing of the front of the face. Maybe it's portrait.
I don't know.
Okay, but that's the idea. So that's how an artist would have to deal with it.
Okay.
In other words, the beautiful piece of art, the expensive piece of art, people wouldn't even notice that, hey, he avoided drawing a face of an ox straightforward, because you got 10 oxen there from all different directions, but you don't have an ox looking straight at you like that.
Well, I'm thinking like something like Michelangelo's David statue. And here's a full figure of a man.
Oh yeah, sure. No, that's a problem. I say even Maimonides. Right. Even though we don't know what David looked like, but it doesn't matter. It's a man. It's a human being. Right. Or like you go to all these different museums, whatever. Lincoln's all over the place. There's full statues of people.
And those are forbidden, those particular types of statues.
To make something like that, yeah. Especially since it's full body. I mean, you go over there, Abe Lincoln sitting over there in Springfield. I mean, it's huge, and it's his entire body sitting there.
Oh, it's on the penny too.
You can't see it. You can't see his body though. Right.
No. On the coins, it is. It's just the face. So that would be the two opinions here. One is lenient, one is strict. And if it's a profile, there's even more room to be lenient. But if you were minting a coin and you decided how to make it, so that would be, since it's protruding on the coin, that would be preferred to avoid.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that we can't derive benefit and we can't use it. We're allowed to use, money that has, excuse me. I've been carrying my wallet for years now. Don't ask me why. 5 pounds. And on the one side is this fellow named Winston Churchill, if you ever heard of him. Sir Winston Churchill. And suddenly it hit me the other day. I said, wait a second. I think I know who she is. So you have the Queen of England. And it's also pretty much both of them are full face, straightforward.
They're missing an ear?
They're both missing an ear. I'm not sure that's good enough. I mean, I don't know if that was their intention.
That's not good enough. Okay.
I'm not sure. But both of that's interesting. Both Churchill and the Queen are both, you don't see their ear. The right ear, both of them. In other words, it's a straight portrait, but the face is just such slightly tilted that you see clearly one ear and not the other. Yeah.
Hey, just to put my 2 cents in, this is James. Thank you, everyone. I apologize for joining late, but thank you for including me. I probably overpaid for this knowledge here, but I remember from my economics undergraduate degree that money has 3 functions. It's a unit of measure, it's a medium of exchange, and it's a store of value. So the three functions of currency. So I was just adding that because I paid too much for that to know that, from my college education.
Very good, very
So I
good.
might as well get my money's worth, right?
That's right, that's right.
But thank you for indulging me, everybody. It's a wonderful
Sure.
conversation.
As I mentioned, I think last time, when they first invented photography with cameras and all that, so at any time a new invention or discovery surfaces, so the rabbis of the time need to know how to apply the Jewish law to that particular situation, and so they had to deal with. I mentioned this pretty much at length, I think, in a previous class. Is it permissible to have your photograph taken? And we said that the conclusion was that it is permitted to have your photograph taken. And we also said that some people still prefer not to, and they're strict about it. And there are still people, not too many, but there are some very religious people that will not allow, knowingly or purposely, to have their picture taken, and they'll block part of their face. How that works with a passport or ID, I don't know. Because as a matter of fact, the only way that we have a picture of the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, that's 2 Rebbes ago, so to say, Rabbi Shalom Doiv Ber, the only way we have the one and only photograph of his is because he made a passport, because he ended up not using it, but he was going to go abroad where he would need a passport, and therefore he posed for the picture. And thanks to that, we have the one and only, as far as we know, existing photograph. But otherwise, he did not want his picture taken. And not really directly about this, not because of idolatry, but also the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach himself, in the earlier years, he didn't seem to really appreciate his picture being taken too much. And whenever he would officiate at a wedding, which he would do until around 1960, for the first 10 years of his leadership, 1950 to 60, he made a condition with the families that no more than, I don't recall if it's 2 or 3, I think it was 2, no more than certain very limited amount of pictures of him can be taken. He will only officiate at the wedding if the photographer will not take more than that number of pictures. But then later on, he became more tolerant, we could use that word. And as a matter of fact, there was a photographer from Israel who used to come every year from a certain point, and he became more and more observant himself, and he became very, very close to the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach, and he would take lots of pictures. And at one point, the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach tells this individual, Levi Yitzchak Freiden, tells him that, I think you're overdoing it, or why are you taking so many pictures? What's the point? There's a limit. And he said, this photographer said, that after he spends the month of the holidays in New York, he goes back to Eretz Yisrael, to Israel, and he has the Hebrew word is tarucha, an exhibition. He has an exhibition where he shows what was happening in Crown Heights in 770, and he shows all these pictures, and he says that there was an individual who became a returnee. He became observant. He was a secular, non-observant Jew in Israel, and because of the pictures, that aroused him to become an observant Jew. And to that, the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach said, take as many pictures as you want. After he told him that. So he got, what's it called? How do you say it in French? Carte blanche? Or, he got full permission. So yeah, so there are many, many pictures. And again, if the purpose of the picture is to inspire a person to become more God-fearing, because if you look at the picture of a tzaddik, that's one thing. It's a photograph or it's a drawing, not a sculpture, not a full image. Anything else?
Yeah, just quickly, if you got like these flags, these people have, like the flag with the eagle on it and stuff like that, you shouldn't have those in your house and stuff like that either, huh?
Just like you can have money in your house, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a problem. Let's say that's not in our case, but I mean, what the flag of Illinois has an eagle on it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think that's a problem. I don't think it's a problem. See, there's two things here. One, can I make it? Can I order it? Can I order it from the professional? Or B, can I be in that profession and be hired to make it? Or can I make it for myself? That's one category. Then there is, can I buy it, or can I use it, or can I have it when I didn't order it to make specifically like that, and it wasn't my doing. They just, that's what they do. That's the currency of our time. That's the flag of this country, etc. So that would be much, room for leniency in that regard.
Okay.
All right. We are still in the middle of this topic of pictures. And since we're going to be taking off for a month, I would like to finish the page so we can at least finish this part. 24. It is permitted to make statuary of trees and of wild or domestic animals, even of animals which are symbols in astrology, such as the lion, ram, or bull. And you're going to say, wait a second, I thought we can't make a bull because it's one of the images in the Chariots. One may make the full form of these figures and retain them in his possession. However, one may not make one form of all 12 astrological symbols together. It's very simple. So you can make individual symbols, but not put them all together as 12, which would seem that even 11 is fine. But you can't make the full astrology, all the whatever they're called, zodiac or whatever the symbols. 25. There's a further opinion forbidding all three-dimensional forms, whether they are in relief or concave. This opinion forbids making such forms in order to keep them in one's possession. It's proper to heed this opinion. 26. One should never gaze at three-dimensional images of man. Such acts of gazing are spiritually damaging. But images upon a ring, since they are commonly found without idolatrous connotations, may be gazed upon. And again, I've said this numerous times. I would say that what he's saying over here really applies to the Jew. They're taking it and they're saying, hey, idolatry is forbidden for all mankind, and therefore this law applies to Noahides as well. I wouldn't have put it that way. I don't think there's a problem gazing at it. I mean, it's not an idol. After all it is a three-dimensional image of a man. So to say that a Jew shouldn't look at it because it's spiritually damaging, fine. It's like a very spiritually great sensitivity. say that we're demanding that of everybody, but that's what they're saying. 27. Huh?
When they say gazing, are they referring to like an intense looking at like a serious gazing, or does it just mean to look at it?
To purposely stare at. You know, if it caught your eye, that's one thing. But now what are you gonna do about it? So to continue looking at it. Doesn't have to be that you're studying it in depth, but to purposely focus on it. 27. The three chief idolatrous images in the world are A, the dragon, which is a derivative of the primordial serpent. Somehow that the original serpent, which is the original sin, turned into a dragon. B, a full figure of a man offering the beholder something from the palm of his hand. This image is commonly found today in front of certain churches. C, a woman nursing an infant. This is the idolatrous perversion of Eve, the mother of all mankind. It became the symbol of the Queen of Heaven and is an image that still pervades numerous cultures and religions. So they're saying those are the three main ones that are around today, which are problematic. So that brings us to page 56, part 3. So we just have to remember in 1 month from today that we're up to part 3. In the meantime, as I said, I would like to wish everyone to be written and sealed for a good, sweet new year. This is a very, very special year coming up. And we're going to have the third and final, the eternal temple in Jerusalem. And then all the Noahide will make the pilgrimage as well to come up and pray to God, as it says in the prophet. And of course, you can bring your burnt offering, your carbon oila, and it's going to be amazing, amazing, beyond imagination. And it's happening. So all the best, everybody.
Amen.
And see you again, Emir Tzah Hashem, Hashem's help, in 1 month. Unless, of course, we're all in, the land of Israel, Jerusalem, way before that. That's the real plan. All the best. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Rabbi. Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year, everyone. Good night.